So what do we learn this week about Mardu Pact in Modern? And first off, the bad news, our record was only 2-3, which obviously isn't ideal. We don't really want to post a losing record when we start playing our Much Abrew deck for the week. So record wasn't great, but I think the way the matchups broke down were fairly telling. So we managed to beat Tron, which was awesome. Our sideboard cards really came through, Surgicals and Fulminator Mages. We beat the super sweet Bant Miracles deck, which was a really interesting match, but then we lost to pretty much all of the unfair decks. We lost to Dredge, we lost to the Turbo Turns deck, we lost to Death Shadow, and I feel like that's pretty representative of this deck. Just looking over the list, it feels like this list, with the Gifted Aetherborns, for example, is built to be pretty good against aggressive decks. If your opponent's playing a Goblin Guide, Gifted Aetherborn is just so insane in those type of matchups, and I feel like the Demonic Pact plan gives us this really crazy advantage, like on turn 6, turn 7, somewhere in that range. So I feel like we can go toe-to-toe with other mid-range decks, Juns and Abzans and things like that. On the other hand, I feel like we're really going to struggle pretty consistently against unfair decks because we just don't have that much. We have the Thoughtseizes, we have the Inquisitions, but we have a lot riding on just those cards. You can see it against Turbo Turns. That matchup felt completely unwinnable because our Inquisitions aren't even good. We actually drew in one game of that match pretty much every piece of disruption in our entire sideboard, every single thing we could draw, and we still weren't able to win the game. So I feel like the unfair matchups for this deck are very, very hard, and that's kind of complicated by the way the deck is built. So before we get into more of the specifics of the deck, I think my overall thinking is if you're considering playing this deck, I think you really want to take a minute and look at your meta. If everyone's playing aggro, everyone's playing mid-range, fair decks, I think it's probably an okay choice, or at least a better choice in that kind of meta than if everyone's playing Storm and Scapeshift and Ad Nauseam and all these unfair decks, because I don't feel like we really have the tools to consistently win the unfair matchups. The other thing about this deck that is more easy to fix is the numbers are really wacky. There's so many 3-ofs. If you look at almost all the cards in our deck, they're 1-ofs or 3-ofs. Gifted Aetherborn, Bladesplacer, Flickerwisp, Lingering Souls, Nahiri. Then we have 1-ofs like Restoration Angel, 1 Demonic Pact, 1 Harmless Offering. So the numbers are just super scattered, and that means we don't necessarily draw what we want when we want it. It's just the draws are very inconsistent, and we're not going to find the right pieces at the right time all that often. So that's the other thing. I think it almost feels like someone took a Mardu mid-range deck and cut some good cards, like Liliana the Veil, for example, and also just like trimmed out some stuff to make room for the Demonic Pact package. And I'm not sure that the Demonic Pact plan is better than just a typical Mardu mid-range plan with some more Planeswalkers, more removal. We're surprisingly short on removal for being this style of deck that's pretty slow. We only got 2 Fatal Pushes, 2 Path to Exiles, which is not a lot of ways to deal with opposing creatures. So I think the numbers are scattered, and if you are going to try to play this deck, I think that part should be ironed out. Like, having 2 Smuggler's Copters, I don't know if that's a good idea. The odds of drawing them when you want them aren't really all that good, so it might be better just to cut them all together, or go up to 4 of them, and use those slots to add some more consistency. Playing a 4th Lingering Souls, playing a 4th Flickerwisp, for example. Probably the most impressive part of the deck for me was the Flickerwisp Demonic Pact synergy. It still suffers from the format problems. Like, it's still slow. Demonic Pact is just a slow card for Modern. It doesn't come down until turn 4, and then we don't even get advantage till turn 5. If it sits out there, like turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, the advantage we get is insane, and the ability to Flickerwisp it, to reset it, and be able to pick whatever mode we want again is really strong. But still, that only is relevant in certain matchups. So if your metagame is aggro, if your metagame is kind of mid-rangey and fair decks, I think this is a fine but probably not great choice. I think it would still rank behind normal Mardu Pact as far as a deck of this style. I think it would still rank behind normal Mardu mid-range as far as a Mardu mid-range style deck. I think it's better, more competitive without the packs. Definitely way less cool and less spicy without the packs, but I think it's more competitive without the packs. But if your metagame is pretty pretty unfair, then I think you just want to avoid this deck. It felt like we did not have the tools to deal with a deck like Dredge, to deal with the Turbo Turns deck, and I'm sure other unfair Goldfishy decks would really be the same way, because we're just too slow, we can't really pressure our opponent, and we don't really have that much interaction. Thoughtseizes and Inquisitions are great, but they're great in those matchups if you can back them up with a clock, or just back them up with more and more disruption. But that's where we were really lacking. Like, we could Thoughtseize on turn 1, get rid of a combo piece maybe, but we don't really have a follow-up to really pressure our opponent and close out the game quickly. Instead, we're kind of waiting until turn 5 to really start doing anything, and even with our Thoughtseizes and so forth, that just gives the unfair deck so much time to reassemble their pieces and win the game. So I guess the bottom line is, the deck is sweet, it was spicy, we got to see some cool matchups. The Bant Miracles matchup especially was just a really fun match, and it was cool to see the opponent's deck. But as far as being competitive, I think the deck needs a lot of work. I think a similar shell can be okay, although you're not going to get around the slowness problem of Demonic Pact. That's going to always be there no matter what style of Mardu Pact deck you build. But I think it can be improved by tightening up the numbers, adding in more 4-ofs over the 2-ofs and 3-ofs. I feel like the deck can be improved, but I'm not sure the improved version would be super competitive, and I'm not sure the improved version would be better than just playing normal Mardu mid-range. So anyway, I think that's all for today. That's been our Much Abrew About Nothing Mardu Pact for Modern. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.